Okay, let's unpack this. We've got quite a stack of sources here, all about the legal proceedings surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. You've shared news reports, bits from the federal indictment, a civil lawsuit filing, and some NPR context on that racketeering charge.
That's right. It's a lot to sift through, definitely covering the ongoing criminal trial, but also these related civil allegations.
And our mission here for this deep dive is really to try and cut through all the noise. We want to go through this material you shared, pull out the key details, maybe some surprising facts, and just give you a clearer picture of what's being alleged, what's happening in court.
Absolutely. The goal is to get into the key events, really understand the charges, and, explore some of the very specific details coming out in these legal filings.
Okay, so where should we start? Let's jump right into the most recent stuff from the sources. The testimony in the federal trial. There's an AP News article that really focuses on the testimony from R&B singer Cassie, his former girlfriend.
Yeah, that cross-examination, wow, it sounds like it was incredibly intense. According to that report, on Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, Cassie Ventura was actually forced to read explicit messages between herself and Combs aloud in federal court.
Wow. That's,
Yeah.
yeah. And the source sort of explains the defense's strategy there, right? They were trying to paint Cassie as like a willing, even eager participant in his lifestyle.
Exactly. The messages they presented apparently showed her expressing desire for these, well, drug-fueled group sex encounters. The source calls them freak-offs.
Which must have been just incredibly difficult for her, especially given what she testified to earlier. Didn't she say these same encounters left her traumatized? That contrast feels really stark.
It really is. And it gets right to the heart of the defense's whole argument.
Right.
Combs has pleaded not guilty to the federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
Right.
And his defense, based on the source materials, seems to be arguing that, okay, while he might have been violent, sometimes they sort of concede the hotel incident, nothing he did actually amounted to a criminal enterprise, and crucially, that all the sex was consensual.
Okay. But the prosecution side is alleging he used his status, his power, to violently force Cassie and other women into these, like, marathon encounters with sex workers, sometimes going on for days.
That's the claim. And that he used his business empire, his employees, to actually facilitate these alleged illegal activities.
And during that cross-examination we mentioned, the defense attorney read Combs' messages, but Cassie had to read her own texts, detailing things she supposedly wanted to do during these freak-offs.
Yeah, that's what the AP article describes.
It even notes how the jurors reacted in the courtroom, some leaning forward, others shaking their heads at the explicit stuff, people staring, taking notes. You can almost feel the tension described in the source.
Definitely. The defense attorney even tried to draw a comparison, asking Cassie if these freak-offs were basically related to a, quote, swingers lifestyle.
Okay, interesting angle. How did she respond to that?
Well, according to the AP source, she acknowledged there was a similarity in a sexual way, but she was quick to add they were actually very different. She'd apparently testified earlier that Combs was, like, obsessed with a kind of voyeurism where he was controlling the whole situation. And these freak-offs, she said, they happened in private dark rooms, not like his big public parties.
And the physical toll she described sounds awful, sometimes needing IV fluids to recover.
Yeah.
And she testified it led her to develop an opioid addiction just to feel numb.
Yeah, devastating consequences alleged there. Just to put this trial in context a bit, jury selection started back on May 5th, 2025. Opening arguments were May 12th.
Okay.
And the judge apparently indicated on May 22nd that they're expecting the trial to run for about 8 to 10 weeks. So it might wrap up around the 4th of July.
Got it. And it's interesting, the source mentions potential jurors were asked if they'd seen that CNN surveillance footage that came out earlier.
Ah, yeah, the CNN footage. That definitely brought a massive amount of attention to the whole thing, didn't it? The Wikipedia source we looked at notes that video, which came out May 17th, 2024. It showed Combs physically assaulting Cassie Ventura in a hotel hallway back in March 2016.
It was pretty graphic.
And after that video became public, Combs posted his own video apology that was May 19th, 2024, calling his actions inexcusable.
And wasn't there an allegation linked to that incident in the indictment, something about bribing hotel staff after the assault?
Yes, exactly. One of the sources references that allegation that he allegedly tried to pay off hotel staff.
So this current criminal trial, it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It actually followed a period where, wow, a lot of civil lawsuits were being filed against him. The sources you shared list quite a range of accusers and claims that surfaced before the federal criminal charges really took center stage.
Yeah, it's a pretty long list mentioned across the sources. You've got
Yeah.
producer Rodney Jones, we'll probably talk more about him later, alleging sexual assault and RECO violations.
Right.
Then model Crystal McKinney with sexual assault claims, April Lampros describing battery and sexual assault going back to the 90s.
Mm.
Dawn Richard from Making the Band filed a suit alleging sex trafficking and assault, and she claimed she actually witnessed things related to Cassie's allegations.
Okay.
There's Thalia Graves alleging she was drugged, bound, raped, recorded. A Florida model, Jane Doe, claiming she was drugged, assaulted, impregnated, then pressured about an abortion.
And that's not even all of them, is it? The source had mentioned a whole bunch of other suits filed late 2024, early 2025. Multiple accusers, allegations involving minors, even male accusers.
Yeah.
It really felt like a floodgate opened.
Yeah, one report cited in the Wikipedia article said there were over 40 lawsuits by January 2025. And around that same time, prosecutors apparently added 2 new alleged victims to a criminal case. It just gives you a sense of the sheer volume of these claims coming forward.
And all this was unfolding while the federal criminal investigation was already sort of bubbling under the surface. That really burst into public view on March 25th, 2024, with those big Department of Homeland Security raids, right, on his places in L.A., New York, and Miami.
That's the date. And the sources note the raids were connected to, well, an unspecified ongoing investigation, but the warrant came from the Southern District of New York.
And the list of things they seized, detailed in the sources, it's quite specific and frankly pretty striking. Computers, electronic devices, sure, but also narcotics, ketamine, ecstasy, GHB.
Right. And 3 illegally modified AR-15 rifles, a drum magazine.
But this one stood out. More than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant.
Yeah, the variety of items seized, it certainly seems to echo the diverse nature of the allegations we've seen in the lawsuits and the indictment itself.
And that same day, March 25th, Combs was questioned down at Opa-locka Airport in Miami. They took his electronics there too, but he was actually allowed to travel on to Antigua.
Right. He wasn't arrested then. The arrest came later in Manhattan on September 17th, 2024, after a grand jury handed down the indictment.
And the main charges, again, reiterated in the sources.
Yeah.
Sex trafficking, racketeering, and other federal offenses.
Correct. And he tried to get bail multiple times, September, October, November 2024, but was denied each time.
Okay, let's maybe dig into that racketeering charge a bit more. The NPR source explains it well. Because, you know, when you hear RICO, you usually think mafia, organized crime families, that kind of thing, right?
That's definitely the traditional association, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But as the NPR piece points out, prosecutors are using RICO more and more in cases involving, well, powerful figures who allegedly use their legitimate businesses or other enterprise structures to facilitate and hide criminal activity.
So it's not just about traditional mobs anymore. The source gives examples.
It does. It compares it to the R. Kelly case, where the argument was that his music career, his income, basically sustained his alleged crimes, and his employees helped make them happen. And the Young Thug case, where his record label itself was alleged to be functioning like a criminal street gang.
I see. So in Combs' case, the allegation is that he used his whole business empire, the indictment calls it Combs Enterprise, as the vehicle to fuel and conceal these alleged crimes.
Exactly. The claim is that his money, his power, his influence, even his employees were all leveraged for criminal purposes.
Okay, that context is helpful. And it kind of brings us to doing a deeper dive into some of the really specific and honestly quite disturbing allegations that are laid out in that Rodney Jones civil lawsuit filing you shared.
Right, Rodney Rod Jones. He was a producer who worked pretty closely with Combs on the Love album. The suit says he was involved from about September 2022 to November 2023.
So over a year. And his main claim in this lawsuit, what's the core of it?
Well, his core claim is that while he was living and traveling with Combs, you know, in LA, New York, Miami, even on a yacht in the U.S. Virgin Islands, he basically witnessed, personally experienced, and had to endure a lot of illegal activity that went way beyond his job description as a music producer.
And he says he has proof. The filing mentions recordings.
Yeah, a significant amount, potentially. He claims to have hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings, apparently because Combs allegedly required him to record things constantly.
Wow. Hundreds of hours. What kind of evidence does he claim is in those recordings, according to the lawsuit?
Well, the lawsuit details a whole range of things he claims to have documented, like the acquisition and distribution of drugs, ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, mushrooms. Also, illegal firearms.
Okay.
There are claims in the filing that Combs provided laced alcohol to minors and sex workers, that his chief of staff, Christina Quorum, allegedly instructed staff on how to get drugs.
It also mentions Combs' son, Christian.
Yes, the suit claims Christian Combs drugged and sexually assaulted a woman. And it even alleges Combs was planning to use his relationship with T.D. Jakes somehow regarding the Cassie lawsuit settlement talks.
Goodness. There's also a really graphic section in that filing about a shooting incident at Chalice Recording Studios.
Yes, that's described in detail. Jones claims a man, referred to just as G, was shot multiple times inside the restroom there.
And Jones claims he was right there.
He alleges he was only about 2 feet away when it happened, and that he was the only one who actually helped G immediately after. The lawsuit filing even included images supposedly showing blood splatter in the restroom on the toilet.
Excellent.
And Jones claims the clothes he was wearing that day might still have G's blood stains, maybe DNA, on them.
And the allegation goes further, right? It claims there was a cover-up.
A major one, allegedly orchestrated by Combs and his son, Justin Combs. Jones claims they forced him and others to lie to the police to say that G was actually shot outside the studio by a drive-by shooter.
But the lawsuit says the police were inside the restroom.
It alleges the LAPD officers went into the restroom after the shooting, saw the blood, but still went along with this bogus claim, as the suit calls it, and no arrests were ever made. Combs then allegedly hired a cleaning crew to sanitize the whole scene.
And this alleged cover-up, the delay in telling the truth about where the shooting happened. Jones claims it delayed medical help for G.
Yes, the suit claims this intentional deception caused a significant delay, that the ambulance was actually parked blocks away because they'd been told there might still be an active shooter situation based on the fake drive-by story.
And the impact on Jones himself.
He claims in the lawsuit that these events severely traumatized him, led to insomnia, PTSD, severe anxiety, depression, a really serious impact.
Okay, moving to another, also very disturbing, set of claims in that same filing. Jones alleges Combs tried to groom him, specifically into engaging in homosexuality.
Yes, that's a significant part of the lawsuit. It claims Combs knew Jones really looked up to the producer Stevie J.
Right, Stevie J, famous producer, Bad Boy Hitman connection, worked on the Love album with Jones too.
Exactly. So the allegation is that Combs tried to use Jones's admiration for Stevie J and the access Combs could provide as a way to entice him.
How allegedly?
Well, the filing describes a specific claim that Combs showed Jones an explicit video allegedly showing Stevie J anally penetrating another male.
Okay.
And this was supposedly done to, ease Jones's anxiety about it, with Combs allegedly claiming this kind of thing was normal practice in the music industry.
And it didn't stop there, did it?
Yeah.
The allegations mention Combs claiming things about his own sex life.
Right. The suit alleges Combs claimed he had had sexual intercourse with specific, though redacted in the public filing, prominent male figures, a rapper and an R&B singer, and also with Stevie J himself.
And there was a promise tied to this alleged grooming.
Yes, Jones alleges Combs explicitly promised him the Producer of the Year Grammy Award if he would engage in homosexuality.
That is quite an allegation. The lawsuit also details other specific incidents, right? Like alleged druggings.
It does. It mentions an alleged incident around Thanksgiving 2022, and again on February 2nd, 2023, where Jones claims he was drugged and woke up naked in bed with sex workers in Combs' presence.
In another party incident, July 2023.
Yeah, an alleged listening party on July 2nd, 2023. The suit claims Combs requested sex workers. Jones says he was the one who had to solicit them, and that there were at least 5 women there who were under 16.
Underage girls present, allegedly.
Yes, and Combs allegedly forced attendees to drink liquor laced with something believed to be ecstasy. Jones claims he tried to leave, but Combs took his car keys. He says he later passed out and, again, woke up naked with a sex worker.
The filing also talks about control tactics, doesn't it? How Combs allegedly kept Jones in line.
It does. It describes this alleged pattern of behavior, switching between making these huge promises like the Grammys, $250,000 for instruments, a $20 million house, access to top executives.
Right, the carrots?
Exactly. And then switching to terrifying threats, the sticks.
What kind of threats?
Really violent ones alleged in the suit, threatening to eat his face, claiming he'd kill his own mother if he had to, just generally making Jones fear for his safety.
Wow. Okay, so beyond all the abuse claims, there's also a more straightforward financial dispute alleged in the lawsuit, too.
Yes, there is. Jones claims he was seeking proper publishing credit and royalties for 9 songs he worked on for the Love album.
Seems reasonable for a producer.
Right. But he claims he was only offered $29,000 total for what amounted to 13 months of work. He says he was willing to accept $50,000 plus his rights, but Combs allegedly refused to pay even that extra $21,000.
Now, this lawsuit, the Rodney Jones one, it doesn't just target Combs, does it? It brings in some big names from the music industry.
No, it definitely expands the scope. It specifically names executives and companies: Lucian Charles Grange, Ethiopia Haptimerium, Motown Records, Love Records, and Universal Music Group as defendants.
And what's the core allegation against them?
They're alleged in the lawsuit to have essentially aided, abetted, and profited from Combs' alleged RICO enterprise. The filing claims, for instance, that Chief of Staff Christina Coram handled the logistics for illegal activities and instructed staff to lay strings.
And Haptimerium, the former Motown CEO.
Jones alleges seeing her visit Combs' homes and the recording studio, disappearing with him for hours at a time. He claims she sponsored or attended parties where sex workers and underage girls were allegedly present.
And the suit argues she should have known what was going on.
He claims she knew, or at least should have known, that Combs was drugging attendees, and that as a sponsor of some events, she had a duty related to that.
The filing makes a pretty stark comparison involving the Chief of Staff, Coram, doesn't it?
It does. It explicitly calls her the Ghislaine Maxwell to Combs' Jeffrey Epstein, a very pointed comparison.
And the lawsuit claims these industry defendants, the executives and companies, provided Combs with large cash payments beyond normal business.
Yes, alleging these substantial payments helped facilitate the recruitment of victims and should have been major red flags for them.
So the claim is they weren't just ignorant bystanders.
Not according to the lawsuit. It alleges they had knowledge through years of prior lawsuits against Combs, settlements, even Cassie giving notice of her claims in early 2023. It argues they detected multiple signs of this alleged coercive venture but continued to participate anyway.
And that participation was active, the suit claims.
It alleges they actively participated in the conspiracy, partly by leading victims like Jones to believe that cooperating with Combs and the enterprise would lead to career rewards. Their alleged conduct, including alleged obstruction of justice, is claimed to be intentional, willful, and a cause of the harm Jones suffered, compelling his participation in sex acts.
And one last piece from that lawsuit, allegations about hidden cameras.
Yes, Jones alleges there were hidden cameras throughout Combs' homes.
And he believes Combs has compromising recordings.
He claims Combs has recordings of executives, celebrities, politicians, athletes, and that he uses these recordings for leverage, making him believe he's basically untouchable.
And he names someone specific connected to these alleged recordings.
Yes, the IT director, Jose Cruz, is named in the filing as the alleged gatekeeper to all these recordings.
Okay, wow. That Rodney Jones lawsuit contains just an incredible amount of specific and often shocking detail. Stepping back a bit, the sources you shared also touch on some of the wider industry responses to all these allegations, right?
Yeah, there have definitely been reactions. We saw things like Keisha changing the lyric in her song TikTok. Remember, it used to mention P Diddy. She changed it first to Just Me, and then later, very pointedly, to Fuck P Diddy.
Right, that got a lot of attention. And there have been business impacts, too.
For sure. Reported drops in streaming and radio play for his music. Brands cutting ties. Macy's was one. Changes at Revolt Media, which he founded.
Howard University took back his honorary degree, didn't they? And a big donation he'd made.
They did. And he returned the key to the city of New York. Miami Beach ended its official Diddy Day. So some symbolic and tangible consequences there.
And the sources also mentioned documentaries are either out or in the works, like one from 50 Cent for Netflix.
Yeah, seems like the story is far from over in terms of public examination. Several projects are reportedly underway.
Okay, so let's try and bring this all back together, back to the main legal context we started with. All these specific allegations, these details from the intense courtroom testimony, like Cassie's reading those messages, to the really graphic claims laid out in civil filings like the Rodney Jones suit, they all contribute to the bigger picture the prosecution is trying to paint, right?
Exactly. That picture, as the indictment lays out and the NPR source helps explain, is of a criminal enterprise operating under the RICO statute.
And that enterprise allegedly involved multiple crimes.
Yes. The core federal charges mentioned are sex trafficking, which under the law, 18 U.S.C. Section 2421, can involve transporting people across state lines for illegal sexual activity forced labor, that's 18 U.S.C. Section 1589, and witness tampering, under 18 U.S.C. Section 1512.
And the prosecution's argument is that he used his whole setup, his power, his money, his employees, his Combs enterprise, to make all this happen and keep it hidden.
That's the essence of the Arago allegation here, using the structure of his businesses and influence network to facilitate and conceal these alleged federal crimes.
It's really something, seeing how they're aiming to use ARCO, a law we often associate with the mafia, to weave together this incredibly wide range of alleged activities, all tied back to this alleged abuse of power through a business empire.
It definitely highlights how versatile and powerful the ARCO statute can be when prosecutors decide to apply it to complex situations involving alleged criminal operations hidden within seemingly legitimate structures.
So hopefully, after this deep dive through the source material you shared, you have a much better handle on things. We've covered a huge amount.
We really have. From that intense courtroom testimony reading explicit messages to the sheer breadth of allegations across all those civil lawsuits.
The details of the federal investigation, the raids, and then getting into the weeds of specific claims and filings like the Rodney Jones suit, alleged shootings, cover-ups, drugging, grooming, and even implicating others in the music industry.
Yeah, you should now have a much deeper understanding of just how complex and multi-layered this whole legal situation is, pulling directly from the details and the sources you provided. It paints a very complicated and often deeply disturbing picture.
It really does. And, as we watch these legal processes play out with all these really personal, often disturbing allegations coming to light, it does make you stop and think, doesn't it? What does the sheer volume, the detail of all this information maybe reveal? Not just about the individuals caught up in it, but maybe about the wider systems, the power structures that might have allegedly allowed behavior like this to happen or maybe stay hidden for so long.
That's a heavy question. It definitely leaves you with a lot to chew on, well beyond the specifics of this one case.